And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host Andrew Johnson. And Johnson, we are now almost through Week 17 of the NFL season. As of this recording, we are recording on the day of Monday Night Football between the Rams and the Falcons, but that game will not mean too much in terms of the playoff scenarios. I'll break that down a little bit later on in the show, but Week 17 is almost in the books. A lot has now been more clear in terms of the playoff picture. However, there are still three divisions to be decided. There is still home field advantage to be decided in both conferences. And now we go into week number 18 with a couple of big games going into the week, a couple of surprises now that are going on in terms of teams being eliminated, certain teams being up and down the standings. And, looking at what we saw this past weekend, I'm curious to see how it's all going to unfold. The NFL scriptwriter, if you want to call it that, has set us up for a couple of interesting matchups for this upcoming weekend in terms of two win-and-in scenarios for two separate divisions. One scenario which we had last season where it's the winner gets the number one seed in the NFC, the loser has to become a wild card team. So a lot to break down on the show tonight.
Yeah, lots to go over, Nick, and I won't kind of hold us back. You can just go straight into it.
Yeah, of course, this is the final broadcast for us of the 2025 years. So let's end it with a bang, Johnson. Let's talk about what happened in week 17. And first, let's start off with one of the games on Christmas Day. Now, we're not going to break down all the Christmas Day games just because the Cowboys Commanders game really didn't mean much with both teams being eliminated. Denver barely beat the Chiefs in that game, but that really didn't mean too much right now in terms of the standings. We'll talk about the Broncos later on, the playoff scenarios. But in the middle of those three games, we had the Vikings taking on the Detroit Lions. And, last week I did say, you were talking about how Dan Campbell probably should be on the hot seat for what's happened this season. The Lions on the brink of elimination for what's been going on this season. I kind of, wasn't agreeing with it because of, what the Lions had done in years past. But I'm starting to believe that might be a situation that is to something to be monitored. Maybe not in this offseason, but certainly going into next season because the Vikings forcing 6 turnovers in this game against Detroit. Not only did they do that, they eliminate the Lions from the playoffs in the process. So Detroit goes from the number one seed in the NFC playoffs last year to missing the playoffs entirely this season. Vikings win this game 23-10 in a game, Johnson, where they had negative net passing yards, that being the Vikings, in this matchup, and yet Minnesota pretty much just dominated them from start to finish.
Kind of crazy when you think about it, right? Because the Lions, this was a team at the beginning of the year where they had Super Bowl aspirations. Now all of a sudden, they're on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
So how's this really happen? Like, do you want to have like a full like post mortem right now? Or do you want to make it official? Like, what do you want to do?
It's tough because the really subtractions they only had in the offseason were the coordinators. So you look at this team, it's pretty much the exact same team from last year. You didn't really miss a lot. You had a couple players injured throughout the entirety of the season, don't get me wrong, but it's not like your big guys on offense were non existent. Like you had Goff playing for the entire year. Amon-Ra St. Brown played the entire year despite being injured at points. Jahmyr Gibbs played the entire year. And, Gibbs, as of late, has just not looked like himself outside of that one game against Dallas. Their offense has not looked really the same outside of that game against Dallas. And in this game against the Vikings, the Vikings just pretty much did what they did the last time against this offense, except they forced 6 turnovers and sacked Jared Goff 5 times in this game. So Brian Flores had a great game plan for this matchup at stopping the Lions offense. And it's now a very interesting offseason for Detroit because, where do you go from here with Dan Campbell? You got to believe he might be on the hot seat now. Now I'm kind of starting to agree with you on that stance. And yeah, it's just weird because, as you mentioned, this was a team that had Super Bowl aspirations going into the season. And we talked about the Chiefs being a similar team like that. Both those teams eliminated from the playoffs. You have, other big time, QBs that are out in the playoffs this year. Joe Burrow, potentially Lamar Jackson, depending on what happens this upcoming weekend. It's been a very wild season to say the least.
Yeah, wild is an understatement. And I love how you mentioned the coordinators because you cannot tell the story of the Detroit Lions without mentioning the story of the Chicago Bears. Same division, same coordinator, but now he's a head coach, and that's Ben Johnson. Was
Yeah,
Ben Johnson really the key to the Lions' success? And anyone who watched last season and this season, you can start saying, yes, that is 100% correct.
100%. Yeah,
And with that being said now, because you can see Ben Johnson have all of his success with a lesser offense, there's not a receiver better than Amon-Ra St. Brown in
right.
Chicago. They do not have a better quarterback. They don't
They don't
have a
have a
better
better
running
running back.
back.
Yep.
So what is the issue? And if the key is Ben Johnson, then Dan Campbell's going to start packing his bags, and Detroit's looking for a new head coach soon.
Yeah, I gotta remember Dan Campbell was the one that took over play calling duties midway at the season, so it falls on his shoulders for how the offense has been throughout the entire second half of the season. It's not the first time they've had a game like this. I know they had a game against the Eagles that went this way. I think it was the Vikings game earlier in the year that's the game that he took over the play calling duties, or maybe it was after that Eagles
And
game.
I do
But
want to point out, though, that Brian Flores has put multiple good quarterbacks in chains
yeah,
this season. He's just held them to put him in absolute misery and hell. And Stafford, who looks like an Stafford, excuse me, uh, Jared Goff, who looked like an All-Pro quarterback for the majority of the season, looked like it was his second or third game in the NFL. Was
he looked
absolutely
like
embarrassed.
I'm glad you brought that because he looked like rookie Jared Goff when he was on St. Louis, and people were calling him a bust with the way he was starting his NFL career. So that's a great comparison. That is realistically what it looked like. Brian Flores, you know, obviously had his faults in Miami, but he could maybe get some head coaching garnering, interest potentially on how the season ends because the Vikings have gone from a team that have gone from 5-8 to now potentially finishing the season over 500 if they could beat the Packers this coming weekend. So they've at least right the ship, even though they're not going to make the playoffs this season. It's been a great second half for this Minnesota team.
Yeah, and Minnesota, I think Brian Flores, he may earn himself a head coach job. Hey, New York Giants, maybe you messed up not hiring Brian Flores. That's all I'm
They
going to say.
they might have a chance to hire him again this time around.
Yeah, well, it's going to be very interesting.
And yeah, I think the other issue for this Detroit team was the fact that I mentioned the negative net passing yards that the Vikings had in this game. That was without nine. Nine wasn't playing this game. It was Max Brosmer. So that just goes to show you that there's a lot of things going wrong for this Lions team, and they got a very long offseason to try to fix what's going on in Detroit because this was a team that I feel like a lot of people wanted to see be a contender, be a Super Bowl threat, and last year they choked in the playoffs against the Commanders. They choked in that game the year prior to the 49ers. And then this season, they missed the playoffs entirely.
I really don't know what more to say to this, but we can just talk about the next game, and let's talk about the Houston Texans.
Yeah, what can you say more about the Texans team? We have been, you know, praising the job that D'Amico Ryans and company has done this entire season. They started the year 0-3 this season. It looked like they were in trouble, but they've really, we talked about riding the ship with the Minnesota Vikings. The Texans have been riding the ship. They've become the second team ever to make the playoffs after starting 0-3. And funny enough, Johnson, the 2018 Texans were the first team to do that exact same mark. So the Texans repeating their own history. They defeat the Chargers 20-16 the final in this game. And because of that victory, it gives the Denver Broncos the AFC West title. So, of course, the Broncos were the last AFC West champion since the Chiefs won of the last 10 years. So, Denver gets the job done. They win the AFC West, and they are still playing for home field advantage upcoming this week. Meanwhile, the Chargers, on the other hand, they are pretty much playing for playoff positioning right now in terms of seeding. Now, they did earlier today announce that they're not going to start Justin Herbert for their upcoming game this week against Denver. So, the Broncos, unfortunately, Johnson, for you, the Broncos are in a good prime position to get home field advantage for the playoffs this season.
Yeah, I know. Justin Herbert's not going to play. Spoiler alert, so I'm already
So
upset about that.
Trey Lance is going to have to be your savior to get the job done in that game. But speaking more about the Texans, I mean, their defense really dominated to get in this matchup, and they've just been, and early on, the offense was showing some great signs of potential. The second half really wasn't a good half for them. They really struggled, but the defense did just enough to get the victory. And I think that's the scary part because right now, if the season ended today, the Texans would be the number 5 seed in the playoffs. So If you're the AFC North champion, which is either Pittsburgh or Baltimore, you've got a very scary sight on your hands having to play this Texans team that right now I would not want to play if I'm any team in the AFC going into the postseason.
No, absolutely not. And there's only been two teams, I think, since 1994 that started 0-3 and made the playoffs.
Yeah,
One being the
it's Texans
2018
twice.
Texans,
Yeah,
and now it's the 2025 Texans. So
yeah, it's
remarkable
crazy.
job here.
It's funny that they repeated their own history. It's kind of remarkable, and I'll admit it. I mean, at the beginning of the year, I didn't really think they were going to be doing this great because I figured they traded away their best offensive lineman in Larry Tunsil this past offseason. So the offensive line was already a question mark before that. Now it was even a bigger question mark. But their defense has just been remarkable to the point where it hasn't been much of an issue this season for Houston. The biggest offensive line issue is the other side of things on the Chargers because Justin Herbert got roughed up in this game. He's been getting roughed up all season, and thankfully for him, he gets a week off now to try to mentally prepare for the playoffs. But if the season ended today, Johnson, they would have to play the Jacksonville Jaguars, who, if you remember, beat them 35-6 earlier in the season. So the Chargers either will be playing in Jacksonville, they could play your New England Patriots. It's going to be interesting to see who the Chargers have in the first round, depending on where they finish, because they also could fall to the 7th seed if Buffalo wins and they lose.
It's gonna be very interesting, and it's crazy because it's week 18, and we're gonna be getting multiple matchups like this that are going to be determining the playoffs, the seeding, if teams are gonna make the playoffs at all. So there's a lot of action still in week 18, and script writers did a good job this time, right? Keeping us
Yeah, I mean,
guessing.
maybe the scriptwriters heard me last week ranting about a certain player because let's go into our next game, Johnson. The Ravens and the Packers. I went on an absolute contingent about how the Ravens didn't give Derrick Henry the ball after they went up 10 on New England. The last 12 minutes of the game did not have a single touch or play a single snap. And then Derrick Henry proceeded to potentially win a lot of fantasy players their potential fantasy championships this past weekend. 36 carries, 216 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns. This all coming being the fact that they did not have Lamar Jackson starting due to an injury. So it was Tyler Huntley versus Malik Willis, who was starting in the place of Jordan Love. And for the most part, this is pretty much it was back and forth for the majority of this game, but the Ravens get a late touchdown to go into halftime. They pulled away in the fourth quarter after Green Bay made it a 3-point game. And the Ravens saved their season, riddled off of what happened on Sunday, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. So, big game for Derrick Henry helps the Chicago Bears clinch the NFC North for the first time since 2018. We all know what happened that season for the Bears. No, I'm not going to bring up what happened in the playoffs for the Bears fans that might be listening to the show. But yeah, Green Bay now for the third straight year, Johnson will be the number 7 seed in the playoffs. They have only been the 7th seed since that has been reincarnated, since that's been in its inception of the postseason. And right now, if everything stood where it stands, they would have another matchup potentially with Chicago in the playoffs.
So is this a good win for New England now? Winning in Baltimore when you just saw Derrick Henry do this against the Packers, which we think are a good team this late in the season. Is that a good win now, or
I guess. But it's just been Baltimore stigma blowing a lot of double-digit leads. So I think that's another thing
yeah? I
too.
mean, we've been doing that for years at this point.
I know. I think you probably have seen the stuff with New England's only beaten one team over 500 this season. I get that, but
Hey, listen, Denver's only beaten
who you
3.
play, right?
Yeah,
You play who you play. Yeah,
the Rams have only beaten 3 or 4. So I mean, what are you going to do about this? I mean, listen, it is what it is. And listen, if Carolina beats Tampa, then they're over 500. If Baltimore beats Pittsburgh, they're over 500.
over 500.
So
Yeah,
so there you go. There's your 3 teams over 500. Congratulations. So
yeah,
and if not, Tampa Bay is going to be the team anyway, and they'll be a playoff team. So it is what it is.
yeah. That division has just been a disaster, the NFC South. But yeah, more just realistically, this game. I mean, for Baltimore, they needed it because if they lost this game, then the Steelers would have been the AFC North champion without even have to play on Sunday, and they at least put themselves in a position to set themselves up for what happened on Sunday. Which let's go into that game, Johnson. The Browns upsetting the Pittsburgh Steelers in a low-scoring affair, 13-6. We knew the Steelers were going to struggle offensively without DK Metcalf, who was serving a suspension for what happened in that game against Detroit. So no Metcalf shows that the Steelers offense could be in a world of trouble going into their final game. They lose this game, and now they have to play a winning in game against Baltimore in Week 18 to decide who goes to the playoffs as the AFC North champ.
So Tomlin's done, right? Like, there's
I
absolutely no way he remains after the
I
season.
truly think the loser of this game between Pittsburgh and Baltimore is going to be fired afterwards.
Yeah,
When you're in the
that's going to
playoffs,
be really
lose, you're
interesting.
done.
That's going to be really interesting, especially with John Harbaugh, because both these coaches have been there so long, so it's going to be
Yeah.
crazy now that
Yeah, Tomlin
I
started.
can't imagine this.
Tomlin started, I believe, in 2006. And I think Harbaugh was either 2007 or 2008. I think it was 07. I could be wrong. They've been pretty much the coaches the exact same time period. So I think the problem for this game also for Pittsburgh is that this has happened not multiple times for them in Cleveland. They have not been a good team in Cleveland. I don't know if you know their record since 2018. I think their record since 2018 in Cleveland, I believe, is now 1-6-1 against the Browns.
Yeah, no, that's right. And the kicker, Chris Boswell,
He missed
struggled
another
there
field goal.
again.
Yeah, he
And
missed another one.
he's always been struggling there too. It's his entire career in Cleveland Stadium. It's been crazy.
Yeah, there's something about the Browns stadium that kickers don't really like to kick at. Even the Browns kickers don't really kick well there for the majority part. But yeah, I mean, Shador didn't look great. He had a nice touchdown, which was the only touchdown of the game. So we'll see what his status is going into next season, because the Browns will surely be a team picking, potentially looking at a quarterback in the draft. But the Steelers are in a weird spot because your offense is struggling, and now you don't have Metcalf going in this game against Baltimore. So you're going to have to rely heavily on the run, and they could not really run the ball in this game for the majority part against Cleveland. So there's a lot of questions if you're a Steelers fan going into this final matchup.
Do you even want to win this game if you're a Steelers fan? Let's be real.
I don't think either of these fans. I don't think
either of these fan
Baltimore
bases
or Pittsburgh want to win the division.
I agree.
I think both fan bases are hoping that they lose because, yes, of course you want to make the playoffs, but at the same time, they probably both want a change from head coach. And there's also the rumors with Lamar Jackson potentially maybe getting moved on from at the end of the season. So it's like I think these two teams just want the season to end, because I don't really know if they both envision themselves making it a far run in the playoffs. As I mentioned, one of them is more than likely going to have to play the Texans in the first round. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to play them if I'm either Baltimore or Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think either of these fan bases want to win this division, but someone's got to win it at the end of the day. So we'll see what happens.
This is Tank Bowl, but to avoid the playoffs, so you get a full restart with your franchise.
It was funny. I kept seeing. Speaking of Tank Bowl, there was only 2 games on the 4:00 slate on Sunday. It was the Giants Raiders game, the Tank Bowl, and it was the Eagles Bills game. And I felt like I saw a lot of people more. Like, I felt like a lot more people were watching the Tank Bowl than watching the Eagles Bills game. But the Eagles-Bills game at least was close towards the end. The Giants just dominated the Raiders because the Raiders, they know how to tank. they know how to tank. That was an ugly performance. Geno Smith is a great tank commander. If anyone's trying to tank next season, hey, if you're the Jets, maybe you bring him back for one more year, try to tank again. Because oh man, Geno has been really bad, really bad.
So he wasn't a double agent for the Giants this entire time. He's a
loyal
servant to Las Vegas.
Easily. Do you remember the last time the Raiders had the number 1 pick?
Was it Jamarcus Russell?
It was Jamarcus Russell.
Here we go. Hey, at least they don't have a quarterback.
They can't mess it up twice, right?
What if they take Fernando Mendoza number 1 overall?
They very might well do that. They very might well do that. But if Dante Moore comes out, I'd be curious to see if they would think about him, because I think there's an interesting dynamic if those are the top 2 quarterbacks. If he doesn't come out, then it's Mendoza easily, and I don't know who the number 2 quarterback would be after him. So yeah,
I'll play the game of trying to guess who the number 2 quarterback would be. I
It
have an
depends
idea.
because Ty Simpson was rumored. Then he had a really bad second half of the season, so I doubt he
It's Ty
goes into the
Simpson.
draft. I don't
If he
think.
does come out, it's Ty. If listen, if
I
it's
don't think he comes out,
Mendoza,
but yeah,
Moore,
it
and
would be
Simpson,
him. Yeah,
and then there's a colossal size gap, and then it's Garrett Nussmeyer.
right. That's the problem. And Nussmeyer was horrible for this majority of the year.
He didn't have a head coach half the year though, so that's what I'll
Even
give him
when
the
he
benefit of
did,
the doubt.
but he was playing injured also. That's another thing too. Like he was hurt the whole season. Um. Anyway, getting sidetracked. Yeah. Not much more to say about this game. The Brown just it was close, but it didn't really feel like it was close. The Browns dominated them defensively, and they were. It felt, Myles Garrett even said it after the game. He said the Steelers were more worried about making sure I didn't break the record of getting the single season sacks mark than trying to win the game. Which, if you look at the tape, it pretty much looked like that. The Steelers didn't want to give Myles Garrett a chance, and they didn't give themselves a chance to win the game either. They had a chance at the end, but were not able to capitalize in the goal line. So we'll have a win and in scenario in the AFC North this upcoming weekend. Then we go into our next matchup: Seahawks keeping the Buccaneers' hopes alive. Johnson. We talked about the NFC South being a disaster, but the Seahawks dominate Carolina with a big second half. They win 27-10 over the Panthers. So the Panthers and Buccaneers both lose this past weekend. They will both be playing in a win and in scenario this upcoming Saturday. The Seahawks, meanwhile, Johnson, still maintain the lead in the NFC West. They still maintain the lead for the number one seed in the NFC playoffs, and they have a big matchup upcoming on Saturday as well against San Francisco. That'll break down later on the show, but the Seahawks team is looking really, really strong this late in the year.
They're looking good. Uh, they had a pretty big offensive struggle in the first half of the game. They really didn't light it up until the second half of the game. And I was sweating because I had him in my survivor pool, so I was really,
Mm.
really sweating that game, and they came through in the end there. And a game Carolina could have won to secure the division easily at home. It was winnable, and Sam Darnold continues to impress. You know the list of quarterbacks that have had back to back 13-win seasons.
So I'm glad you brought it up because I saw this list too. I remember a couple of them. I think it was what Brady, Peyton,
And Rodgers and Favre.
Rogers, and Favre. Okay, I was trying to think. I couldn't think of the
Yeah, the
last
two
two. That's of
Packers
course the
and
Green
Brady,
Bay
and
Pack
yeah,
quarterbacks. That's
only,
crazy.
only quarterbacks in NFL history. He puts himself in some elite company there.
And to think that this upcoming Saturday, for the second straight year, Darnold is going to be in that scenario that I brought up earlier on the show, where if his team wins, they're the number one seed in the entire NFC. But if his team loses, they're more than likely going to be the 5 seed in the NFC playoffs. So it might happen back to back years for Sam Darnold, but he'll look to rewrite history this time around. So I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I think the biggest part of the Seahawks is their defense is just really looking good too. I think that's been the
Legion of
most
Boom
impressive
esque.
part. Yeah, honestly, it's right up there with the Legion of Boom. They've been playing really, really strong, and I think that's just really the scary factor of this team. Like they don't have to be a well-oiled machine offensively. Like their defense is more than capable enough to win games.
Speaking of defense, Nick, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills defense that held the Eagles to like 20 yards in the entire second half,
Second half was
but
brutal for that
managed to
second half was
lose
brutal.
the game still.
Yeah,
Break it
yeah,
down for us.
and with that loss, it helped your New England Patriots clinch the AFC East at the end of the day. So the New England Patriots have the AFC East crown. They're playing for the number one seed this upcoming week for the AFC playoffs. And for Buffalo now, Johnson, they now are the 7th seed in the playoffs. So there's a potential that you could meet Buffalo in the first round of this playoffs. But
There is, but it's
I think
unlikely.
I think the only way it's likely is does Buffalo play their players this upcoming week because the Chargers have already announced they're not playing Herbert. So does Buffalo care about getting the 6th seed to potentially play Jacksonville, or do they just say, you know what, let's play New England again in the first round?
Well, it's crazy because do you think Denver's going to play their guys?
Oh, they have to. They're playing for the 1 seed.
Yeah, they're playing for the 1 seed, but like stranger things have happened, right?
They're gonna play the starters
I
because
want to be delusional for a second here.
I know, but you gotta think about it too. It's also getting that extra week of rest is the why it's big.
I hear you.
That's exactly why you're saying it, because I know why you're saying it, because you want your team to get it. I completely understand it. I think for Buffalo, I think the other thing is this: it's gonna be officially the last game at the Bills Stadium, but because with that loss and New England winning, they can't win the division, so they can't get a home playoff game. It will be the last game that they have this upcoming Sunday against the Jets. So I would think they're going to probably play their players in that game, because you don't want to play your backups in a game where you might lose the final game of your stadium. So I would think they'll play their guys. If I had a feeling, you will probably be the 2 seed. You'll probably play the Chargers in the first round, and I would say Buffalo probably goes to Jacksonville, plays the Jaguars in the first round. That's how I think it's going to end up being in the AFC standings.
I would tend to agree. That sounds like a
Now, I'm assuming you would rather play the Chargers.
yeah. I'd like the Chargers. Listen, if I lose to the Chargers, I know that's a great football team.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, you're gonna be playing. I mean, all the wild cards in the AFC are really good. Like the Texans are a
No, these are
solid
all
team.
really great teams. These
Like,
are all really
yeah,
great
I wouldn't want
teams.
to play any of those wild cards in the AFC. And probably you could probably say the same again in the NFC. Maybe outside of Green Bay, just because of the injuries they have right now. But yeah, the wild cards are very strong this year. I think that is what is really tough for any team. That's why you want the 1 seed, because at least give yourself that week off to where you can watch the tape of what happens in the wild card and say to yourselves, okay, this is what I have to deal with next week potentially. So I'm curious how that folds up. But yeah, more about just really about this game. You mentioned it, the Eagles' offense was really struggling in the second half, but the Bills got themselves in a bad setting in the first half. They couldn't score going into halftime. They had chances to score before the half, but weren't able to get the job done. They fell a yard short on a fourth down play early in the first half. They get back in this game late in the fourth quarter. Josh Allen gets a couple of rushing touchdowns to put them within one. But then it comes down to the decision, Johnson, because earlier on that first touchdown, the extra point was blocked. So instead of them being down 13-7, it was 13-6. They get the touchdown to make it 13-12, and they have the decision. Do you go for two and get the win, or do you go for the extra point and send the game into overtime? They had to think about it twice, because they had the guys ready, and then the Eagles called the timeout, and they decided to go for it anyway. And Josh Allen had him. He had Khalil Shakir in the back of the end zone, but just underthrew the ball, and it allowed the Eagles to win the game. And that keeps the Eagles alive for the number 2 seed in the NFC standings. So it's a tough decision for Buffalo, because that decision effectively now obviously eliminated them from the AFC East contention, but now puts them into a spot where you're looking at and thinking to yourselves, who do we want to play now in the first round of the playoffs, whether it be New England or Jacksonville? And there's still a chance they maybe play the North champion, but they would need both the Texans and the Chargers to lose, which probably won't happen, because I don't think the Texans are going to lose to, I believe they're playing the Colts, who probably will not have Philip Rivers playing.
Yeah, I
So yeah.
mean, we did see Philip Rivers' last snap probably in the NFL. They took him out because they didn't trust him to throw that Hail Mary, which was picked off anyway. Um, I mean, it does suck though, right? Like now that I know we're getting a little bit off topic here, but it feels like I feel like Philip Rivers has
I
a lot left in the tank. I
I
feel like
want to
he can
see
come
him
back and he
play
gets in
someday.
shape. If he can get in shape up in the next off season, I really feel like he'll make a team. There's no he's off the couch. He was better than 20 QBs.
Yeah, I mean, the Monday night game against the Niners, like, he was slinging it to start that game. He played pretty good in that game. He just had the one bad interception late. And unfortunately for him, this past weekend, he had the same similar scenario where they were tied with Jacksonville, they were fighting, and then he just had a late interception that really cost them the game. So there's still some gas left in the tank. I'm hoping they play him on Sunday. I would like to at least let him get a final send off, because I don't want to see Ryan Leonard playing. It's just not going to be fun to watch. At least if Rivers plays, it will give the Texans a little bit more of a fit, potentially win that game. But then on the other side of things, Johnson, do we want to see Phil Rivers potentially get beat up by that Texans defense? That's where I don't know. I think it's a pro and con to that happening. But I would maybe like to see him play that game. But yeah, we're getting a little bit off track. like I said, for this game, Eagles stay alive in the NFC standings in terms of being a top 2 seed. And Buffalo now will have to go on the road in the wild card throughout the entire playoffs. And we talked about it, this with this being the year with no Mahomes, no Burrow, potentially no Lamar Jackson, everyone thinking that this could be the year for Buffalo to finally get the job done. It still could happen, but they'll have to do it on the road this upcoming postseason.
So, are we going to talk about the greatest game ever?
Do you think that was the greatest game? I mean, it was a good game. This was
I
a
think
good
it's
game.
one. I think it's one of the greatest. How about this? The best Sunday night game in a decade.
Best Sunday night game in a decade. I almost said the Rams and Chiefs game. That was Monday Night Football.
It was Monday night.
I think just because of what happened, because I think that was the first. Correct me if I'm wrong. The stat was that was the first time in NFL history the game was tied at 7-7, 14-14, 21-21, 28-28, 35-35.
35. First time it's ever happened.
That's never happened. Yeah, that is a crazy stat. So I could get behind that being maybe one of the best games we've had in a decade. It was, and you know what? I think for a game that has 2 quarterbacks, because let's face facts. You've given your slack about Caleb Williams for the majority of the last 2 years. I've given my slack. I think you've also
still not
given
good.
slack. Well, he looked good in this game.
Okay.
He looked good for certain parts. There were some throws he did miss. I'll admit that he did miss some big throws that could have helped the Bears win that game. And Brock Purdy, I've given slack about. I think you've also given him some slack over.
I've given him a lot of slack, but he looked good this game.
But he's been looking great the second half of the season.
The guy had really, 5 touchdowns. Strong. Outside of that one pick six beginning of the game, he locked in. So for 59 minutes of football, he looked really good.
Right. I mean, I think this is what is really great about the NFL this season. I think that there's a lot of unexpected that's been happening this season. The Bears, they look like a team that maybe could make a run in the playoffs. I think it's going to come down to Caleb Williams making those throws that we talked about earlier. Because right now, as we mentioned earlier on too, we said that they are the number 2 seed still, despite them losing and the Eagles winning. They have the tiebreaker, of course, from that Black Friday game. And the Niners, meanwhile, Johnson, they had to win this game because the loser of this game had no path to the number 1 seed. So with the Bears losing, they can't get the number 1 seed in the playoffs. The Niners winning it makes it a lot more simpler to gain the 1 seed. If they beat the Seahawks, they have home field advantage. And if you remember, the Super Bowl is in Santa Clara this season. So the Niners have a chance to have home field advantage throughout the entirety of the playoffs. And if they get to the Super Bowl, it's in their own home stadium. So that's going to be something to watch out for on Saturday. That's going to be by far the best game of the entire slate going into Week 18. But more about this game, you talked about it. Both teams were trading punches. Pick 6 to start the game for the Bears. The Niners come back, go down the field, and respond with a touchdown. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The Bears take a late lead on a field goal attempt from Santos. The Niners go back down the field. They get a touchdown to Jawan Jennings to go up 42-38. But for what we've seen this season, Johnson, the Bears have been pretty much dialed in the last 2 minutes when they're trailing in a game. They have 6 come from behind wins this season. And I think that's the most in NFL history for a team in the last 2 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, the stat I saw last night.
Yeah, that's correct.
And they got down the field. They got inside the goal line. They were 2 yards away or 4 yards away from the game-winning touchdown, but the Niners had just enough pressure on Caleb Williams. His throw was short towards the end zone, and the Niners hang on in this game 42-38. They'll play a win-in spot for the number 1 seed and the NFC West title this upcoming Saturday against Seattle. Meanwhile, Chicago, it's simple for them. They beat the Detroit Lions. They will be the number 2 seed in the NFC standings. If they lose to the Lions and the Eagles beat the Commanders, then they will be the number 3 seed in the NFC playoffs this year.
Well, Nick, if you'd like to go further into playoff scenarios, please do so. But if not, I think we can start the mushing hour.
So I'll talk quickly about the scenarios as possibly I can. I pretty much already broke down the NFC West and the first round bye. It's simple as that. The NFC, the other scenarios in the NFC, for what I just deciphered, the Rams have no mathematical way of getting the 1 seed. They can only be the 5 or the 6. So If they win tonight, they're still alive for the 5 seed. If they lose, they're going to be the 6 seed. And there's a funny wrinkle to what happens tonight, Johnson, with the NFC South, because if the Falcons win tonight and they win again next week against the Saints, and let's say if the Buccaneers, even if the Buccaneers defeat Atlanta next week, there is a path where the Panthers could still win the division via a tie, a 3-way tie with them, Tampa Bay, and Atlanta.
And the Falcons. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yes, because the Falcons have defeated the Saints twice this year, and the Panthers own the tiebreaker over Atlanta because they beat them twice. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers were split the head-to-head. They were 1-1. So Carolina and Tampa Bay, it's simple. First scenario, win and you're in. The second scenario is that the Buccaneers either need the Falcons to lose tonight or lose next week and win, or for the Panthers, if they win or tie, or if the Falcons win their last 2 games and if they lose their game to Tampa, they make the playoffs. So that's a weird scenario, but that is a scenario that goes into the NFC South for week number 18. On the AFC side of things, Denver, simple for them. They win against the Chargers, they get the first round bye. If they tie the Patriots lose or tie, they get the first round bye. Or if New England loses and Jacksonville loses or ties, they get the first. For New England, they got to win and Denver has to lose, of course. Jacksonville will need to win and get a Denver loss and a New England loss to get the first round bye and home field advantage. Long shot for that to happen, but we'll see. I think stranger things have happened. Jacksonville is playing for the division title this week. If they win the AFC South. Or if the Texans lose, they win the South. Texans need to win, and they need a Jacksonville loss to clinch the division. And then there's really no big scenario for this one. It's winning in for the AFC North. Steelers, Ravens. It's just you get in, you win the game, you're into the postseason. The Steelers could also make it via a tie if that happens. So a lot of scenarios, a lot of possibilities for these teams going into week 18. But like I said, the game tonight doesn't fully matter unless it is for that NFC South scenario that I mentioned with the Falcons. So the Falcons will need an upset tonight to bring utter chaos to week 18. So we'll see what happens in the game tonight. But let's go into the mushing hour for our final mushing hour of 2025, Johnson. It's going to be week 18 of the NFL season. Let's kick it off.
Very sad because there's absolutely no way I recover with my record. So it is very sad.
No chance. It was
it's been a rough year.
Yeah, college football at least going well.
I did have college this year, which was good.
College was good for you this year. I'll have a slight chance to potentially finish. I'll have to go perfect this week. At least finish 500 at least. But we'll see. What's our first game of the week? We're going to go a little bit out of date with our schedule, by the way. You'll see.
We have Colts at Texans. We have Texans are a 10-point favorite at home, and the over under is 40.5. Give me Texans. Actually, no, give me the Colts to cover. Screw it. Give me Colts plus 10.
I'll give you the option because you gave me this option a couple weeks ago. If Phillip Rivers doesn't play, you want the Texans minus 10?
Yes.
Okay, I will give you that because that's exactly what I did when they played the Seahawks. I'm taking Texans minus 10, and I'll do the same thing. If Rivers does play, I will take the Colts plus 10. So I'll be with you on that game as well. Our next matchup, we go into the Windy City. It's the Lions at the Bears. The Bears are a 2.5-point favorite. 50.5 is the over-under.
It's got to be Bears minus 2.5, right? This is the Lions team that's imploding, and this is a Bears team that is still fairly hot.
Now, here's the question I have for you. Do the Lions play their players in this game? Because they have nothing to play for.
They're playing to screw over a division rival.
That would be the only thing. That's
why I think the Chargers are doing a coward move because they're letting a division rival get the 1 seed.
Yeah, I think I kind of think if I'm New England, I would rather have the Chargers the first round because of what you just said. Because they're allowing their division rival to get the 1 seed and they're forcing your hand and not getting it. So you probably want the Chargers in the first round just
absolutely.
For payback. So I get it. I kind of want the Bears to win because I really want a Bears-Packers Part 3. They've had some very interesting matchups this season. So I do want the Bears to win this game. I'll take them minus 2.5. If the Lions do play their players, I'm not sure how long they do play them because they don't want to risk further injury for next season. They're trying to, get healthy now they don't want to get it even further worse if they get some injuries in this game. So I'll take the Bears minus the 2.5 in that matchup. What's our next game?
We just mentioned this game. We got Chargers at Broncos, and the Broncos are an 11.5 point favorite at home. 37.5 is the slated over under. Give me the Chargers to
Go ahead.
cover.
Yep. And hope for a prayer that Trey Lance maybe turns into North Dakota State Trey Lance and pulls off
Yeah,
the major
that's I
upset.
could dream.
You could
I could
dream.
definitely
You could
dream.
dream. For once, you could cheer for the Chargers to do something right. I'll take Denver. I mean, they didn't cover against the Chiefs on Christmas, so that was another discussion for another day. But they seem to do this all the time. I feel like they've done this all year. They have these big spreads and they just never cover. So you would think because of that, I probably won't take them. I'll just take them because why not? Broncos minus 11.5. I just have no faith in Trey Lance getting the job done. Sorry, Johnson. I know you need them to pull off the upset in that game. Then we'll go out of date. We'll go into Saturday, one of the first two games on Saturday. It is the battle for the NFC South crown. It's the Panthers at the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers a 2.5 point favorite, 44.5 the over-under.
Bucks have to cover this game and win. Give me Bucks minus 2.5.
It's crazy to think Tampa Bay is 1-7, I believe, in their last 8 games, and they still have a chance to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Hey, you know who else has won 7 of the last 8 games?
Do tell. Oh
He's
yeah.
won 8 in his last 2 games before that too. Crazy.
Yeah, can we talk about the Colts? 8-1 to start the year. They're not making the playoffs.
Yeah, it happens.
They had a 99% probability of making the playoffs at one point. I think we're going to see Chris Ballard, the GM, being fired. And it's not really. I mean, like again, like you could kind of blame him for what happened because of the Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones getting injured didn't help, but they didn't have any contingency plan afterwards. They had to go to a 45, 44-year-old quarterback to try to salvage the season. Yeah, I don't know. And now they don't even have a first, and they traded their next 2 years of first round picks to the Jets, who are not going to have top 16 picks in the draft this upcoming season. So yeah, now a great look for him in that regards. But I'll take Tampa Bay minus 2.5. It'd be fun to see the Panthers in the playoffs. I feel like they are not the greatest team, but if given a home game and the way their defense has been for a good portion of the season, I feel like they'd be a sneaky team. Tampa Bay really hasn't impressed me. Probably hasn't impressed anyone, including themselves, the last, what has it been, 2 months of the season. But with a home game, you'd have to think that that's going to rile them up and get the job done. And they got to revenge what happened a couple weeks ago in Carolina. So I'll take Tampa Bay minus 2.5 on Saturday afternoon. Then, Johnson, we go back into our final Sunday night game of the year. What is that going to be?
So the question is whether or not the Steelers and Ravens are going to win this game, all right?
Mm-hmm.
But rather, are the Steelers fans going to boo Renegade? That's the question. That's what's the over on that? What are the odds on that?
I think regardless if they're winning or they're losing, they're probably going to boo it.
All right, so I'm taking Steelers plus 3.5. Ravens are a 3.5 point favorite on the road. The over under is 40.5, but give me Steelers plus 3.5.
I'll take Baltimore minus the 3.5. We obviously don't know if Lamar Jackson's playing or not. I would assume that even if he doesn't play, they're probably just going to do what they end up doing on Saturday, where they just give the ball to Derrick Henry and see what he can do. If I'm going to trust, it's funny enough because that's probably what the Steelers are going to have to do too in this game. They're probably just going to have to run the football. So this could be a very low-scoring game just for the sheer fact that these two teams might not throw the ball a lot. The Steelers don't have a wide receiver one to throw it to. I think it's Adam Thielen, which is really bad. And Baltimore, Tyler Huntley was fine, but I mean, you're not going to want to throw the ball when you have an opportunity to run it like you did this past Saturday. So I'll take the Ravens minus 3.5 to get the job done and win the AFC North, but not sure. Like I said, whoever wins this game, they're not going too far in the playoffs. I think that's what we can both agree on for this division. But then, Johnson, we'll go out of date for the final time, and that's going to be the biggest game of the week. It's on Saturday night. It is the Seahawks at the 49ers, the battle for the NFC West, and the battle for home field advantage in the NFC playoffs this season is Seahawks minus 1.5. 49.5 is the over-under.
It's got to be, 49ers, right? That's what we're taking. We got to take 49ers minus plus 1.5 here. Excuse me. I don't know why they're being disrespected at home after that offensive explosion they just had, and the Seahawks have struggled on the road. So give me 49ers plus 1.5. Feels like they know something. I don't.
See, I don't think that's the case. I think has been better on the road, no?
Yeah, but Seattle just struggled on the road this past week, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is this was, of course, they played it in week 1. That was a low scoring game in Seattle, and the Niners won that game late on a late touchdown. I think I'm going to lean towards Seattle getting the win. I'll take the minus 1.5. I think it's also the fact of Sam Darnold does not want to have the same scenario happen twice in a row. If that happens twice in a row, then the scriptwriter is doing something very funny. Because then they would give the Niners home field advantage. And, as I mentioned, they would have the Super Bowl potentially played in their own home stadium if they get that far. They might get Fred Warner back, not for this game, but for the playoffs, which would be a big get for them. I just really like what Seattle's defense is bringing to the table right now. I think they stop this Niners offense. I don't think it's going to be as high scoring as maybe the book says. So I'll take Seattle minus 1.5. I think they get the job done, win the division, and get home field advantage in the playoffs. And going into Seattle, not going to be easy for anyone to go and face the 12s for the entirety of the playoffs.
Well, Nick, that is our final mushing hour for the 2025 regular season. How's it feel?
I'd feel better if the picks were good this year.
At least you were better.
Was I, though?
Yeah, you were better than me this year.
Well, NFL, I guess, but I'm still under 500.
College, I was pretty good.
I don't talk about college. I just don't talk. Did I have a good year in the NFL last year? I did. I was over 500.
You did. We were opposite last year. Last year I killed the NFL. I did really bad in college, so we flip-flopped this year. It happens.
Yeah, I think I was bad in college, too. What, right? I don't remember.
Last year you were good. You were bad in college, good in the NFL. Now it's the opposite.
Yeah, don't listen to my college football picks. I'm obviously the worst. Yeah. Other than that, regardless, it's been a whirlwind of a year, 2025 for us. Very exciting year for sports in general, and with this being the final week of the NFL season coming this weekend, we of course also have the college football playoff quarterfinal kicking off. In just a couple of days, I believe Wednesday will be the first game of the CFP playoff with Miami and Ohio State. And then on Thursday, it's the other 3 games, Oregon, Texas Tech, Alabama, Indiana, and then Ole Miss and Georgia. So for us, the busy season still goes on for us. We will be covering all of the CFP still once that concludes. And then Johnson, of course, after next week in the NFL, will be breaking down the matchups for the NFL postseason and giving our early Super Bowl picks. So looking very, very forward to seeing. I think I have a hunch of where you're picking, who you're picking this year for the Super Bowl. But
no,
maybe not. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's been a great year. Any takes from the year? Any final thoughts?
I've had a great year watching sports, and not really.
Yeah, it's been a great year for you for sports.
I mean, overall, it's pretty good. I mean, Patriots, it could be worse.
Patriots are back to being good.
St. John's had a historic season.
Yeah, we watched St. John's.
The Knicks are good again.
And Knicks are gold.
Oh yeah, overall pretty good.
What's called the Gold Cup?
Pretty good. Yeah, the Gold Cup. The NBA Cup. The Gold Cup is yeah. You're thinking of soccer. You're thinking of soccer.
Yeah, I think of soccer. That's coming up. The World Cup I'm thinking of. For soccer's coming up in 2026. That should be fun in the summer. But yeah, very interesting year for our teams. Unfortunately for me, my football team still sucks. And yeah, I don't even know. Hey, you want to? Well, I shouldn't say that yet because if I say that, then I'm going to jinx you.
No, I know where you're going with this. I almost
said it. I held myself.
I heard the
40,
first half of that sentence.
47 points,
You can get
Johnson.
47 points, not
47
one
is the
more.
cushion for Puka Nakua. That's all I'm saying. We're both fine if that happens.
Yeah, 40. You can get 47, but not one more.
47. I'm not asking for another point. I just want 47 on the dot.
That's fine.
God, Drake May, man. What a great game he had, but he screwed me over in the process. But he helped you in the process, too.
Yeah, he really did. Really did.
Do you think he's won the, do you think his
No.
MVP odds are higher than Stafford?
No, because Stafford threw a bunch. They want to save Stafford, like, oh, he has all these touchdown passes, but he threw like 10 touchdown passes at the 1 yard line. So, like, yeah, that's great, I guess. So,
Yeah, I mean,
we
if you think about it,
go stat pad.
if he struggles tonight, then it's possible. Wow. Do you know what the current updated odds are for the NFL MVP?
It's probably Matt Stafford minus 500.
Stafford's minus 250 for a
Okay.
couple bucks. Then it's Drake May at plus 175,
180.
plus
Okay.
200.
Okay.
Can you guess the next four players?
Uh, Josh Allen,
Josh Allen's in a tie for third place with another quarterback.
Trevor Lawrence.
No. Trevor Lawrence is up there. Trevor Lawrence. So I'll say this: Trevor Lawrence is tied with him in a couple of books. A couple other books, he's plus 2,000.
Okay. So I said Josh Allen. I have to guess the next two.
Yeah. So you have. Here's the top set. There's six players I'm looking at: Stafford, May, Josh Allen's there, Trevor Lawrence is there, which is crazy. That Trevor Lawrence is there, but he had a really strong.
Yeah, and
last
the end
couple
of the
weeks.
season. I'm
So who's
gonna
the other two
say
players?
this is tough. It's not Bo Nix. He's been
It's
playing
not Bo
terrible.
Nix. He's just number 7.
Yeah, it's not him. I'm thinking of quarterbacks.
Obviously, quarterbacks. Yeah,
Is it Caleb Williams?
Caleb Williams is one of them.
Okay, so I need one more.
Yeah.
Can I get a division or a conference?
AFC.
AFC. AFC quarterbacks.
I wouldn't think too hard on it.
I am gonna think pretty hard because I feel like I'm like overthinking this right now.
It's a team
no
in
one.
the playoffs, obviously.
Yeah, it's no one in the AFC East besides Drake May or Josh Allen. So we got our AFC East. AFC North. No, not AFC North.
No one
AFC,
deserves it to be in that
AFC
position.
West. I don't think that. No Justin Herbert.
Well,
Is it Justin Herbert?
You might want to think about it. It is Justin Herbert.
Okay, so there we go.
It's Justin Herbert.
Is he 6?
He is. So it's Stafford, May, a tie with Williams and Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, and then Justin Herbert.
Okay, so he's 6, and then Bo Nix is 7. Okay, that makes sense then.
Yeah, Bo Nix is 7.
What's Patrick Mahomes' odds, by the way?
I think you know the odds.
Okay.
Why am I seeing Geno Smith in this? It's plus 50,000. Why is
that's a donation?
Yeah, he's got what is that? BetMGM? BetMGM has some of the same odds as Christian McCaffrey. I don't know how that's possible. That's gotta be a typo.
Neither of them are happening. That's why it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's Stafford or May. Stafford would have to have. Here's the thing too. Also, if Stafford has a bad game tonight, they probably won't play him next week. So Drake May, if you want to take him a plus odds right now, I don't think that's the worst idea. He might win it because he's going to play next week. He only needed one half to throw 5 touchdowns.
We'll find out. Yeah.
Man, the Jets are just so bad. So bad. I'm sure you were happy to watch every single second of that. Outside of him getting taken out in the third quarter.
No comment.
No comment. Yeah. But yeah, that's going to do it for our final episode of the 2025 year. For all of us here on the All Gas and No Break Sports Show, we would like to wish everyone a very happy new year. As we go into now week 18 of the season, a couple more games to be decided in terms of clinching scenarios, and the biggest ones of the week are the NFC South battle with the Panthers and the Buccaneers, battle for the AFC North, Ravens and the Steelers, and the battle for the NFC West and home field advantage between the Seahawks and the 49ers. How will this all unfold? We'll break it all down next week here on the show, while also previewing the NFL postseason matchups and giving our early Super Bowl picks. And also next week, we'll be breaking down and recapping the college football playoff quarterfinal and then previewing the semifinal, the final 4 teams in the CFP. For Nicholas Pavona and Andrew Johnson, this has been the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week, and everyone, have a very happy new year.